I talked to Benjamin, and Benjamin's like, look, man, I told you to keep reading. You know what I mean? You're confusing the whole issue. The whole issue is to understand the book, not to make the book be understood by you. He said, that's the whole thing, is I want God to speak to you, not for you to tell God how it should be. Just let it come out, what the book is trying to say. I said, well, I'm not understanding it now. He said, well, maybe you need to get to the end. Some books are like that. You don't really, it doesn't all come together until you get to the end. We know there are books like that. There are movies like that. You don't know what's going on until like the last 5 minutes. And you're like, oh, all of the rest makes sense now. So he's like, just go to the end of the book, man, and stop asking crazy questions. So I finished reading the Old Testament. Because I said, okay, my pastor told me you should go to the New Testament. If you really want to focus on someone's life, then do it to the life of Jesus. I mean, this is whom we follow, by the way. We're called Christians, Christ-like. So go follow Jesus Christ. Look at his life. Look at his teachings. Look at him. You'll find that perfect model that you're looking for that can be followed unto salvation. So I said, okay, but I had to finish the Old Testament because Benjamin made the promise. And the last book of the Old Testament, which is called Malachi, there was a very clear, amazing statement in it. And it said, and I was reading from the Old King James, it said, and this was kind of like God's direct message to the children of Israel, kind of like a farewell almost message of the Old Testament. It said, I do not change. I, God, do not change. Therefore, the sons of Jacob, meaning the children of Israel, have not been consumed or destroyed. So God is saying that I don't change. That is the reason I have not destroyed the children of Israel for their disobedience, because I made a covenant with them, and I honor my covenants, and I don't change my ideas or mind or thoughts. This is unbecoming of me to change. Change is unbecoming of the Creator, who does not need to change because he is perfect in every single way. For anything to change shows its flaw. It automatically shows the flaw that is inherently in it. God is unchangeable because he is perfect. So this was very rational to come from God. I do not change. That's the reason I have not destroyed you. And that covenant is still there, even when it is mentioned in the Quran, the covenant that God made with the children of Israel. That he has fulfilled it to them, they should fulfill it to him. So I got to the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Or the Gospel according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, whom are reported to have written the books, which would be the disciples, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But the more documentary evidence that we have would suggest that the authors are unknown. Unknown. I mean, they can be deducted from certain statements that maybe somebody wrote something, but they're very much unknown, according to most of the academics. Because nobody pinned a name down to these books, and there are no originals to check, even who have written it. And they're all pieced together from a conglomerate of different sources. Now, the way I had normally read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John was according to how people normally read a book. How do you read a book? You start at the first page and you read down to the first chapter and the second and third. You read in that kind of formal format. Now, a textual critic, or someone who is does historical critical analysis, a critical analysis of a document, especially when you have something like the Gospels, which is, according to my belief at the time, 4 different stories told, or the same story told by 4 different people from 4 different vantage points, but the same story. 4 different people looking at the life of Jesus Christ and telling their viewpoint, and this is what I had concepted. But when you look at it in a different manner, because it's all different viewpoints, and you kind of do it according to an analysis of vantage points. So how someone will take a testimony of something is you do it the linear reading, which is you find the first story of Matthew, which is the story of Jesus' birth and his entry into Jerusalem. And then you go to Mark and you find the same story. You go to Luke, you find the same story. You go to John, you find the same story. And then you compare the eyewitness testimony. This is how you would do any type of legal document, even in a court of law. If there's more testimonies, you weigh their testimonies against each other. So when you do it that way, what you come to realize, and there's so much out there that I wish I could give you, but I would keep you for 10 hours on this. Because we did a course the last time I was in London, it was 10 hours. What you come to find out is that actually it's 4 completely different stories told by 4 completely different people in 4 completely different ways. This is the Gospels. They are completely 4 different stories. They're not told the same way, and they're not told by the same vantage point, and they do come to contradictory terms in many places to where they completely contradict each other on small minor things in some places like dates and days and so on. But then there are some conflicts that go to the very root of irreconcilability. They go to theology aspects. They go to the point of theology. And this is why there are so many debates at the first 3 centuries, 4 centuries of Christianity, was because of these kind of conflicts. And so in the midst of all of this, because this is how I was reading it, Benjamin was showing me this, and this was just kind of too much for me to take in at that time. You know what I mean? All these different vantage points and I said, look, I want to know just a few things. I want to know, what did Jesus say? What did the man say? What did Jesus preach? What did he teach? What was his message? What was his purpose? What does the crucifixion mean, and how does it entail to my salvation? This is what I want to know. I want to know the crux of this man. I want to know the crux of the God's Son, who I thought at the time was God in the flesh. I want to know, what did he, say. So I focused a lot on the red letters, which are the purported words of Jesus Christ himself. And I wish I had the time to go through detail by detail for you. But I just don't. Some of you may have, I think I told the story at Cardiff. I think maybe there was a company that came to Cardiff. I told it detail for detail, and it took 2.5 hours. So I'm not going to hold you for that long. But what I will tell you is that when I studied the words of Jesus Christ and compared them with one another, compared his words out of all the 4 documents, what I come to realize, well, first and foremost, let me take a step back. I'm going to need about 20. You'll be all right. I'm not going to keep you that long, but I'm going to keep you a little bit longer than 15. But what I came to realize, taking a step back, was the root of the credibility of these Gospels really came into play, because they're written in English. The ones I was reading were written in English, and I knew for good and well Jesus did not speak English. And then come to find out that most of what we have, the New Testament, is taking over from the Greek, which also is a language that Jesus did not speak. It is verified according to 99% of biblical academia that he spoke Aramaic. This was the language he spoke, and the language of the disciples themselves. They spoke Aramaic, which is a language that only exists really in one place in the world, and it's in Syria. There's a small town in Syria surrounded by mountains where pure Aramaic is still spoken. It's a language that's been lost. So to go back to what Jesus originally said is very difficult. Very, very difficult. So what we get at best from reading the Bible that we have now is a translation of something that does not exist. An original that doesn't exist. But when I did take what was there and read it, Jesus spoke in 2 different languages. He spoke explicitly and he spoke implicitly. Explicitly means there's things he said that were clear. No ambiguity about it. Like when he was asked about the greatest commandment, he said the greatest commandment is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. You should love him with all your heart, with all your might, and with all your might, with all your heart, with all yourself. And then you should love your neighbor as you love yourself." All of the law and the prophets hang on these 2. That's clear. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one," is clear. John 17:3, that this is life eternal, that they may know you, the only true God, Jesus Christ, whom you have sent, is clear. It's unambiguous. And then Jesus did speak implicitly, which is implied or inferred statements, which can be interpreted and have been interpreted over the 2,000 years since this man walked on the earth, have been interpreted in various manners. Like, "I and the Father are one. He who has seen the Father has seen me. Before Abraham was, I am. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one cometh to the Father but by me." To think that there's only one opinion about these verses is just to do a injustice to Christian scholarship, because this debate about what these statements meant has been raging on since Jesus left this earth. In the 1st century, this was the greatest of the debates. Who was Jesus? What was he? Was he of the same nature of God, a different nature, a unique nature? It was not until the 4th century, when the creed was laid down that all Christians should believe in, and everyone who did not believe in that was a heretic, and they were going to be killed and their books to be burned and ran out. I mean, this was really when it took hold, what we believe now as mainstream Christianity, but to say the debate was not there between erroneous and between Josephus, and I mean, that would just do it injustice. The debate has always been there. But he spoke explicitly in many statements, and implicitly in many statements. And some of these do come to contradiction, like the sense that who have seen me have seen the Father. This is a statement that is used as an explicit, which if it's an explicit, there's a problem. If it means that I am God, and if you've seen me, you've seen God, that this brings a conundrum. Because Jesus also states in John that no man has seen God at any time. No man has seen God at any time, nor have you heard his voice. So we have a conundrum. If they're both explicit and mean face value, then we have a conundrum. This is the things that I'm talking about. They either have to be interpreted in a different light, or if they're left in their understanding of explicitness, then we have a blatant contradiction. But beyond all of that, I want to get to what I came to the conclusion of, and then allow you to go and see the evidence, which is going to be outside, which I'm going to tell you how to get in a moment. Because if I give you all the evidence, we'll be here for hours and hours and hours. But I'm going to tell you what I came to, the conclusions after doing all of this. And it's the same conclusions that I've come to now, which I'm still a student of textual criticism. Good friends with one of the greatest textual critics in the world right now, Bart Ehrman, who studied under Brisoc, one of the greatest leading textual critics of our time, who studied under some of the greatest of Cambridge. When he goes to the home of textual criticism of our generation, it's coming right down the road here. Jesus, peace be upon him, came to the children of Israel at a time when the children of Israel had fallen far, far away from God's message to them. And he came as their Messiah. This was the promised Messiah that has been prophesied since Genesis. I mean, they had been told that their Messiah was going to come. They had been given some of his qualities and his attributes and so on and so forth. And Jesus came and claimed that he was that he has been sent as the Messiah to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He was their Savior. Messiah simply meaning the one who is anointed, the one who is wiped over, or chosen, from the Messiah meaning kind of anointed, wiped over. But there was a problem with that the children of Israel directly had. First and foremost, Jesus was not a king from lineage. He was not a noble from lineage. He was a simple carpenter with apparently no father, according to the reports, or even the father of Joseph, for those who didn't believe in his virgin birth, from Galilee, from a small very poor fishing town on the Red Sea. So he's saying that he's the Messiah. This guy, this carpenter guy, this poor carpenter guy is saying that he's our Messiah. This is not going to work, because the Messiah that they envisioned was a king who was going to sit on the throne of David and rule over the world and put the world under the law of Moses, and that this was what their Messiah had to lead. And Jesus was trying to concede to them that, look, I have not come to give you the kingdom of this world, but I have come to give you the kingdom of the hereafter. The kingdom of God is at hand. The kingdom of God is the kingdom of the hereafter. That is the reality of life. That this world is a transient phase, and that the real kingdom that God has for his followers is in the hereafter. And Jesus said, this is what I've come to take you to. Out of this, because they were thinking the promised land in this world, that's it, that's all there is to gain in life. That's it. There's nothing that we're going to gain other greater than this. And he was saying, no, there's something greater than even the promised land. It is the kingdom of the hereafter. So they were not willing to accept a Messiah like this. No, he has to come and do this and that and the other. Not only that, but Jesus was sent to a people whom he referred to as a murderous and adulterous nation. Murderous and adulterous. So we see that those are bad qualities he disapproved of. Murderous and adulterous nation. I'm sure he knew that David, if correct story goes, was murderous and adulterous in and of himself. But that's another story. Murderous and adulterous nation. He called the ruling class of the Jews hypocrites, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. These were the holders of the law. He called them hypocrites, so they stand on street corners so that people can witness them. He used to challenge them directly, even from a young age. And they were the people who were using God's religion to lord over other people. to subjugate other people, to get rich and wealthy over other people, even though they were ruled over the Roman Empire.